Yeah, so well, that's good then. If you can, so the main, I guess we're 8:36. But it's a shame that we haven't got a few more attendees. But while we got the three of us, let's just carry on. Yeah, so the idea that I wanted to focus on today was a proposal. We seemed in our last meeting last week, the main group meeting, we seem to have a number of companies that are willing to partake in contributing towards the proposal. I'm trying to get around to getting a straw man in place that we can all work from. So that's one of my key things to try and get completed this week and out to everybody. But in essence, listening to all of the input at the main meeting, there were a couple of companies, albeit relative startups or collaborations between two companies. There was one of them was Teresa, a guy called Renew Raman is the CEO there, and it's a new startup trying to build a open architecture equivalent DGX boxes, and they're working on some of the software stack themselves, and they're trying to bring pieces of machines together, and they're quite interested in the HPCM, the potential of that in you know, they don't necessarily want to be a hardware company, but they like the flexibility of what HPCM could bring. So they're sort of offering that they could help manage the system integration level. And then we've got the IABRA guys that have been involved for a while now. They're an AI company, but they've been partnering with a big defense company in Europe called Leonardo. They all would like to build a machine out of HPCM. So, and they have some specific module desires. So those two could sort of maybe lead or help to lead the overall proposal or the overall project. But then the way I see it, we've got three fundamental pieces that are critical to getting going on this. The first one being the power and thermal management. You know, the radical change in design is really around power and thermal, giving us the physical structure that we have in the wall in the modules. And so I've got Boyd's interest, which are a huge company on the thermal side. And I've also got a lot of interest from a few smaller companies as well, including the University of Illinois are willing with their conformal coating of insulation in copper for water cooling, which is quite interesting. So, and then I've got a power company called Programalog that do the load slammers, where we can sustain a kilowatt of load or more. And so we can actually physically build a test vehicle of the primary mechanical and thermal infrastructure and the power delivery as well. So we can make you know, we can do all that without worrying about any level of compute or system management at all, sort of thing. So I think that's an avenue. So in the proposal, I want a separate section for that. And then I want a separate section for interconnect, where we're trying to have, I want one universal interconnect so that we can cover any speeds in electrical or optical, active cables, passive cables, active copper, active optical. And you know, so that's a separate section. So I've got the connector companies, Samtec and Amphenol are interested in helping out there and contributed to the proposal. I've got Avicenna, which is a startup with an LED optical communication, which I think is really quite interesting in contrast to the silicon photonic stuff. So they're interested in participating. And with the interconnect, I'm trying to have this world where we can migrate from electrical to optical to co-packaged optics. I think the industry is so damn focused on just jumping 100% into co-packaged optics, that they're missing the opportunity of having a more of a migratory path. And so I'm hoping to get an interconnect solution, which I'm calling a universal interconnect, that could do PCI CXL, Ethernet, NVLink, Infinity Fabric, or any custom protocol, but physically the pluggability and the cables are the same for all of these. And the system management side would be the thing that would discover the network and discover before turning things on that you've got a CXL talking to an NVLink and it's not going to work, or you have a CXL talking to an Infinity Fabric, but there's a compatibility mode that the Infinity Fabric can go into, and so you put that one into compatibility mode, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's the interconnect one, so that's a separate part of the proposal. And then finally, the system management, where I want that to be open BMC. I want it to be Libra BMC, which is the hardware, the open hardware, where it's an FPGA implementation. This Libra BMC has been done with Xilinx and Lattice, and we've got Lattice willing to lead the hardware on the system management. And in that, then we've got the physical communication of the how do we what is our discovery mechanism? Is it so? We're so old on system management with DC signals in I2C. The LTPI looks like a good starting point, or a packetized differential LDS differential communication that can go around a gigabit or more. Gigabit per second or more sounds like a good starting point for our communication. And it's whether we have a separate control plane, which is the physics of physicals of the architecture. So there's a physical part of the system management that I'm getting a much better handle on. The clocking side, I'm a little bit concerned about. We don't have any clocking representation in our work groups. And so because the clockings can be quite complex in terms of how we do that. So there's that piece of it. But then we need this software. So by being open BMC based, we can pull all of this stuff that's going on in Redfish, and hopefully we can make all of that work in this physical instantiation. We can work with DCSCM, the security module that OCP has, so that we can have some root of trust rolling out across the modules. But the modules need to be self-bootable as well. They can boot by themselves, and then they can become part of a bigger system. And that's where the high-level thinking needs to be done that you, Alex, and John were discussing in the last meeting. And I think that's a critical piece of this. And again, Mitch made the point several times on the last call. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. So everything that's going on in Redfish and the rest of it, where the industry is moving, I'd rather leave behind all the really old legacy stuff like IPMI and all that, and just get to the modern stuff where everyone's driving forward, and make that the mechanism. So we'd have a third part of the proposal, section of the proposal, focused on the system management, both this hardware infrastructure and the software story there. And then that would form the complete proposal. And each of these sections would have monies allocated to them. So the companies involved, the people that said, we're going to help the proposal, are the people that are going to get the money. And it's a case of, the more collaborative we are, I think the more chance we have of winning, because if we can show multiple companies collaborating to make this open standard, then that's going to drive us forward. And on that, I've talked to a couple of companies there where they're saying, how do I protect my particular piece of IP? And my emphasis is we just need to define the interfaces that stay open to make this an open standard, like the IBM PC has been for the last 3 decades. And so that the pluggable interfaces, software and hardware, are critically defined, and you can innovate with your own IP within those interfaces to bring better technology to this standard. So the proposal will then have monetary numbers put in for each of the proposal sections, and we will itemize that in the proposal. And if the government says, "Oh, we really like the system management part, but we don't like the rest," well, maybe we can get funding to at least get the system management going. Or they really like the idea of the thermal and power, re-architecting. Maybe they'll come back and say, "We don't like the whole thing, but we like sections of it." Or maybe they'll say, "Let's do the whole lot." And then I guess in terms of managing the monies, it would have to come through one of the top system integrators, or it would come into us. We need a mechanism so that we just filter down the money that was requested and approved down to the working groups and between the people that are doing the work. Does that make sense? That's sorry, I went on a little bit there. Does that overall thinking make sense for the proposal?
It makes sense to me. I guess I'm interested to know more about the company, and I missed the name, looking at being a system integrator for a DGX box kind of thing. Because it's really the integrators offering open source software contributions that I am most interested in, because I think we can pull all this together through that.
Yeah, so the company's Teresa. I mean, they are right at the starting gates. They don't have funding yet. They're trying to get funding themselves. Terizza. And the CEO is Renu Raman. And he's Indian, and he's got some deep collaboration with the Indian government. There's a lot going on there as well, in terms of their drive towards having their own capabilities in the data center area. But he particularly likes the HPCM architecture. He wants to. Yeah, so he wants to go to the market with a standard sort of 19-inch rack chassis implementation, but with CXL, and he's doing the software stack. He's got 3 different layers of software that he thinks will make a difference, but needs the hardware to be in place that he can manage with his software, right? So he's working with companies like Enfabrica. They're doing the switches, and trying to pull systems together, but likes the idea of being able to build a system with the HPCM module. He's got. I call him a system integrator because he sort of has the global view of a complete solution. Now, I'm assuming his software is going to be proprietary to a certain extent, but equally open. He wants it to be an open approach, an open solution compared to the DGX and software stack from NVIDIA that is obviously closed. So, but I can introduce you, Alex, so you can get a better understanding of what he's up to, if you like. I see what he's up to.
I guess I'm more interested in, since I know that Lanol will not be using the money to do the work.
Right.
Because we can't accept the money, we can't deal with that. Like some other system integrator will. So maybe it's not Teresa. They don't sound like they are far enough along. But maybe there's another system integrator that plans on doing something serious with the software.
Right. So I partition it into 2 things, and the software stack that Teresa are doing, if I understand what they're doing correctly, I'm not particularly, that is sort of like the application stack, software stack is what they're doing. Whereas my interest in this work group, in this proposal, is purely the system management, the replacement of the old BMC that goes back into the original IBM PC that we've just grown warts on, and the electricals are still back in the days of the IBM PC when it was first invented. So that's what I'm interested in. And also from obviously a high performance compute perspective, where the poor old government guys, as you articulate really well, that you have to start from scratch with every damn new machine each time on the software side. So is trying to make that more. So if we can be more holistic in that. So I'm only interested in the system management software, which gets you to boot and gets the discovery, the machine knows all of the pieces and where they are and the speeds and feeds, etc. Whatever is needed to know at the management level, so that then the software can make use of it in the various software stacks that people implement. So it's a bit like on the electrical and the interconnect side. I don't care about the protocol. I really don't give a toss. All I know is everything's transceivers. I want the connector and the cabling, optical, electrical, to be the same for everything. And and the protocols are dictated by the chip that gets soldered down. And I don't, and so again, this standard is pretty damn simple. It's just mechanical and electrical fundamentals and management fundamentals that a software, of understanding what these pieces of hardware have been, how they've been wired together, and telling the rest of the software stack. I'm trying to keep it that simple, which is why, when we've got people like Kevin Cameron keeps coming in and saying, I've got wonderful IP on the software for doing much better communication. And yeah, you're a layer above me. I'm just trying to do something really simple. Just get a common standard in the physical hardware. Sorry.
Okay. I think that makes sense. It's still a question that my involvement and Lionel's involvement is we can help guide those standards towards all of the OCP standards and say, okay, here are the ones that we want to stick to, and here are the ones that we think need to be evolved, and here's some use cases we can see for it in a 10,000, 30,000, 300, whatever sized system. But I need to know who it is that I'm going to be dealing with on the integrator.
Okay,
side,
so
I haven't heard anything yet.
Right. So, well, we have Lattice in place on the physical hardware side of this. They have some partners they've been collaborating with on the software side for doing some of the open solutions. There are small companies as well that they've engaged with, and they've said they potentially could be involved in this on the software side. But so if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, then, I mean, from your perspective, you're tasked to do this anyway, funded by Lionel. You could contribute to the proposal in terms of the words of what we need to get done. But you need names, as in companies and company names in the frame that are going to get these various pieces done. Is that correct? And you could be an active participant as well. But you don't need any monies for that because you've got your monies from Lionel anyway.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. And well, you had John Lung on from Intel, right? So John seems to be the godfather of everything Redfish, and by the sound of it. So he seems to be the guy that knows everything about what's going on everywhere on all of this. If I understood it from the call last week and the previous call I had with him. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to him on this project and looked at working with him on some of the other projects, but what I don't find is integrators, like who are taking these standards and trying to apply them to real world stuff today, and what's a reference implementation look like? Who's in charge of a reference implementation? I'm still trying to find where the rubber meets the road on something like this.
So there's
so I'll have to ask John again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously well, I guess Mitch, to a certain extent, Liquid are partaking in this in some form or fashion, right?
Yeah, at some point, and the point of our spear is CXL, and then a little further back is PCI Express, which are older sort of. PCI Express is an older technology, and so within OCP, there's, you have to kind of hunt around. It's a little bit, like you say, disorganized in some regard and hard to find where the rubber meets the road. And sometimes they're pretty quiet. However, I think in the data center data center module team, there's a fair amount of work going on in those work groups for implementation of the management processor, like that security processor that Alan mentioned. But
there is that HPCM work group, isn't there? I
Yeah.
guess.
Mhm.
So did you say John couldn't give you names, or you just haven't asked him to get you specific names?
So I guess I have not asked John specifically on this stuff. What I was looking for is more on the Open Rack Manager side, where he and I were working as well. And it sounds like none of the Open Rack Manager implementations are at this point public, other than the one that is the reference implementation is kind of based on an older product that is kind of abandoned. It sounds like if we could find some integrators that were willing to work on an Open Rack Manager implementation, we would get a lot of help from people who are running it internally, who've got something similar internally, but nobody wants to take their own internal implementation and make it an external reference implementation. So that's what Lando cares about, is having an external reference implementation that we can point to. Either we write it, but at this point, since we don't have any systems where we anticipate using the disaggregated infrastructure on our current roadmap, this is going to have to come from someplace else. We can help guide, and I just want to know, who do we talk to?
Right. I do remember that IBM had an effort going with all the OpenBMC and LibreBMC, that they had an effort going trying to get an open standard for the HPC machine management side of things. That was run by a guy called Stephen Roberts, but Stephen moved over to AMD, so I don't know if that's all disappeared or somebody else took over from what he was doing there.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that one, or are you familiar with Stephen?
The IBM, the name doesn't ring a bell, but the IBM project does.
It does. Do you know if that's still live, or?
Not based on the discussions that I had with IBM folks at Supercomputing. So
Okay.
maybe it is, but not in a way that they were aware of.
Right. I could ping Stephen Roberts and see what happened after he left. Actually, I can probably get hold of him. We can take that action.
So unfortunately, I will have to drop in a couple minutes for a conflict.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah,
but I will keep
also
showing up to these.
Yeah, okay.
Because I do think finding a way to get this collaboration going.
Well, if you
is in all
can,
our best interest.
yeah, if you can spare some of the time to just maybe put some words around the proposal about what you want to see come together from that top level perspective. If that's something that you can maybe add to the system management section, that would be good. Lattice are working with a company called Raptor, and there's another startup. They are looking around these areas, but I don't know if they're looking at it from your sky high view or not.
Is Raptor the FPGA BMC folks?
That's right. Yeah, they were doing it with the power stuff, and
Yeah.
I think they're now doing it for Lattice with x86 as well.
Okay. I will see what I can figure out and try to put together try to put together something.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll hopefully get out this rough straw man with the holes in for people to sort. You know, if you can bash some words in there to get it going from your perspective of the angle of attack here, that would be, you know, maybe appreciated by DOE. These Oak Ridge National Labs building these big machines, saying if we can get this one universal HPC management code that gets used across all machines that ever get built, rather than having to start from scratch. You know, if you can put those words of pain, that when the DOE reads it, they go, "Oh yeah, this would be bloody brilliant if this could." Then that would be a nice little start. And then we need to, like you say, we need to fill in the gaps with the various companies that can actually knock out the stuff that you're wanting.
Cool. All right.
right.
Thanks, Alan. Good talk, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Likewise. Thank you for your attendance. That's good. Good discussion. Thanks.
Cheers.